The Mont Blanc Tunnel is a highway tunnel in Europe, under the Mont Blanc mountain in the Alps. It links Chamonix, Haute-Savoie, France with Courmayeur, Aosta Valley, Italy, via European Route E25. The passageway is one of the major trans-Alpine transport routes, particularly for Italy, which relies on the tunnel for transporting as much as one-third of its freight to northern Europe. It reduces the route from France to Turin by 50 kilometers and to Milan by 100 kilometers northeast of the Mont Blanc summit. The tunnel is about 15 kilometers southwest of the tripoint with Switzerland, near Mont Dolent. Begun in 1957 and completed in 1965, the tunnel is 11.611 kilometers in length, 8.6 meters in width, and 4.35 m in height. The passageway is not horizontal, but in a slightly inverted V, which assists ventilation. The entrance elevation on the French side is 1,274 m and 1,381 m in Italy, with a maximum of 1,395 m near the center, a maximum difference of 121 m. The tunnel consists of a single gallery with a two-lane dual-direction road. At the time of its construction, it tripled the length of any existing highway tunnel. The tunnel passes almost exactly under the summit of the Aiguille du Midi. At this spot, it lies 2480 m beneath the surface, making it the world's deepest operational tunnel. The Gauge-that-base tunnel will be slightly deeper when it opens to traffic in 2016. Plans to widen the tunnel were never implemented because of lack of financing and fierce opposition of local residents who objected to the harmful effects of increased heavy traffic. The Mont Blanc Tunnel was originally managed by two public companies, each managing half of the tunnel. French side, ATMB, founded April 30, 1958, Italian side, SITMB, founded September 1, 1957, after the 1999 fire, which showed how lack of coordination could hamper the safety of the tunnel. All the operations are managed by a single entity, MBTEIG, controlled by both ATMB and SITMB together, through a €50 shares distribution. Construction statistics: workforce, 5 engineers and 350 workmen worked, an estimated grand total of 4.6 million man-hours to complete the project. Explosives: 711 tons of explosives were used to blast 555,000 m3 of rock. Energy: 37 million kilowatt-hour and 2,700,000 liters of fuel for trucks and engines. Other facts: 771,240 bolts, 6,900 drill rods, and 300 tons of iron were used to support the vault. 5,000 m3 of formwork for 60,000 tons of cement of aggregates. History until 1999. 1946, 100 meters are drilled on the Italian side, marking the project start. 1947, Franco-Italian agreement signed for the planning of a tunnel under Mont Blanc. 1953, signature of a national charter for the tunnel construction, ratified by the parliaments of France and Italy. 1957, formation of the STMB, which became ATMB in 1996. 1959, in May, the French and Italian public works ministers officially launched the drilling work. On May 30 in Chamonix, a ceremony is held for the start of the drilling work for the Mont Blanc Tunnel in the presence of the public minister for labour. It is announced that a giant 75-ton tunnel boring machine will make it possible to bore the tunnel in less than 30 months. 1962, meeting of the French and Italian drilling teams on August 4. The opening was successful, the axis variation was less than 13 centimeters. 1965, inauguration of the tunnel by the French President, Charles de Gaulle, and the Italian President, Giuseppe Saragat on July 16. Tunnel opens to traffic on July 19, 1973, opening of the first section of the Autoroute Blanche. 1978, a network of surveillance cameras is installed every 300 m and the total capacity of fresh air supplies increased to 900 m3 per second. 1980, an additional air shaft, 7 m in diameter, is built to avoid the buildup of foul air at the French end of the tunnel. 1990, part of a multi-year modernization plan, the following work is done: the installation of third-generation video surveillance cameras with fiber-optic data transmission, the construction of 18 pressurized emergency shelters, every 600 m, and safety recesses every 100 m, the installation of a pressurized sprinkler system, the replacement of safety features, phone terminals, fire extinguishers, power generators. 1997, the start of a fire detection system and the start of a study for automatic incident detection, centralized safety equipment management, and new variable message signs. An alternative route for road traffic between France to Italy is the Fra Copyright-Just Road Tunnel. Road traffic grew steadily until 1994, even with the opening of the Fra Copyright-Just Tunnel. Since then, the combined traffic volume of the former has remained roughly constant. The 1999 fire. On the morning of March 24, 1999, 38 people died when a Belgian transport truck carrying flour and margarine caught fire in the tunnel. After several kilometers, the driver realized something was wrong as cars coming in the opposite direction flashed their headlights at him. A glance in his mirrors showed white smoke coming out from under his cabin. This was not yet a fire emergency. There had been 16 other truck fires in the tunnel over the previous 35 years, always extinguished on the spot by the drivers. At 10:53 CET, the driver of the vehicle, Gilbert de Grave, stopped in the middle of the tunnel to attempt to fight the fire, but he was suddenly forced back by flames from his cabin. At 10:55, the tunnel employees triggered the fire alarm and stopped any further traffic from entering. At this point there were at least 10 cars, vans and 18 trucks in the tunnel that had entered from the French side. A few vehicles from the Italian side passed the Volvo truck without stopping. Some of the cars from the French side managed to turn around in the narrow two-lane tunnel to retreat back to France, but negotiating the road in the dense smoke that had rapidly filled the tunnel quickly made this impossible. The larger trucks did not have the space to turn around, and reversing out was not an option. Most drivers rolled up their windows and waited for rescue. The ventilation system in the tunnel drove toxic smoke back down the tunnel faster than anyone could run to safety. These fumes quickly filled the tunnel and caused vehicle engines to stall because of lack of oxygen. This included fire engines which, once affected, had to be abandoned by the firefighters. Many drivers near the blaze who attempted to leave their cars and seek refuge points were quickly overcome. Within minutes, 2 fire trucks from Chamonix responded to the unfolding disaster. The fire had melted the wiring and plunged the tunnel into darkness. In the smoke and with abandoned and wrecked vehicles blocking their path, the fire engines were unable to proceed. The fire crews instead abandoned their vehicles and took refuge in 2 of the emergency fire cubicles. As they huddled behind the fire doors, they could hear burning fuel roll down the road surface, causing tires to pop and fuel tanks to explode. They were rescued 5 hours later from a third fire crew that responded and reached them via a ventilation duct. Of the 15 firefighters that had been trapped, 14 were in serious condition and 1 died in the hospital. Some victims escaped to the fire cubicles. The original fire doors on the cubicles were rated to survive for 2 hours. Some had been upgraded in the 34 years since the tunnel was built to survive for 4 hours. The fire burned for 53 hours and reached temperatures of 1,000 degrees Celsius, mainly because of the margarine load in the trailer, equivalent to a 23,000-liter oil tanker, which spread to other cargo vehicles nearby that also carried combustible loads. The fire trapped around 40 vehicles in dense and poisonous smoke. Due to weather conditions at the time, airflow through the tunnel was from the Italian side to the French side. Authorities compounded the effect by pumping in further fresh air from the Italian side, feeding the fire and forcing poisonous black smoke through the length of the tunnel. Only vehicles below the fire on the French side of the tunnel were trapped, while cars on the Italian side of the fire were mostly unaffected. There were 27 deaths in vehicles, and 10 more died trying to escape on foot. Of the initial 50 people trapped by the fire, 12 survived. It was more than 5 days before the tunnel cooled sufficiently to start repairs. Pierlucio Tinazzi Pierlucio Tinazzi, an Italian security guard employed by the SITMB, is credited with saving at least 10 of the 12 survivors. Tinazzi died while helping victims out of the fire. He was on the French side at the time emergency services had given up. He donned breathing equipment and drove into the tunnel on his BMW K75 motorcycle. He was in radio contact with the Italian side for over an hour before succumbing to the intense heat. His motorcycle melted into the pavement after he dragged an unconscious truck driver behind a fire door. A commemorative plaque at the Italian entrance honors him. Aftermath. The tunnel underwent major changes in the 3 years it remained closed after the fire. Renovations include computerized detection equipment, extra security bays, a parallel escape shaft and a fire station in the middle of the tunnel complete with double-cabed fire trucks. The safety shafts also have clean air flowing through them via vents. Any people in the security bays now have video contact with the control center, so they can communicate with the people trapped inside and inform them about what is happening in the tunnel more clearly. A remote site for cargo safety inspection was created on each side, Aosta and Passy-Lafayette. Here all trucks are inspected well before the tunnel entrance. The same areas are also used as staging areas, to smooth the peaks of commercial traffic. The experience gained from the investigation into the fire was one of the principal factors that led to the creation of the French Land Transport Accident Investigation Bureau. TV documentaries were also made concerning the disaster, all distributed worldwide and focusing on either safety aspects or the circumstances that turned what should have been a serious, but controllable incident into a disaster. The first, Seconds from Disaster: A Eurotunnel Inferno, was a reconstruction of the events leading up to and during the disaster and the conclusions of the investigation that followed. The second, Into the Flames: A Eurofire Underground, revisited the circumstances and showed how new technology in the form of a new type of fire extinguisher could have reduced the scale of the disaster and enabled the fire service to reach and remain in the vicinity to fight the fire. Manslaughter trial. In Grenoble, France, 16 people and companies were tried on January 31, 2005 for manslaughter. Defendants in the trial included, Gilbert de Grave, the Belgian driver of the truck that caused the fire, Volvo, the truck's manufacturer, French and Italian managers of the tunnel, ATMB and SITMB, safety regulators, Mayor of Chamonix, a senior official of the French Ministry of Public Works. The cause of the fire is disputed. Different accounts report it to be a cigarette stub carelessly thrown at the truck, and it supposedly entered the engine induction snorkel above the cabin, setting the paper air filter on fire, a mechanical or electrical fault, or poor maintenance of the truck's engine. The closest smoke detector was out of order and French emergency services did not use the same radio frequency as those inside the tunnel. The Italian company responsible for operating the tunnel, SITMB, paid a $13.5 million to a fund for the families of the victims. A Permilde Balada, former president of the French company operating the tunnel, then later Prime Minister of France, underwent a witness's examination. He was asked about the security measures that he ordered to or did not order to. Balada claimed that the catastrophe could be deduced to the fact the tunnel had been divided into two sections operated by two companies, who failed to coordinate the situation. On July 27, 2005, 13 defendants were found guilty, and handed sentences ranging from fines to suspended prison sentences, to 6 months in jail. Gerard Roncalli, the head of security at the tunnel, was convicted to a 6-month jail term plus an additional 2-year suspended sentence, the heaviest sentence levied against any of the defendants. Rémi Chardin, former president of the French company operating the tunnel, was convicted a 2-year suspended jail term and a fine of approximately $18,000. Gilbert de Grave, the driver of the truck, received a 4-month suspended sentence. 7 other people, including the tunnel's Italian security chief, were handed suspended terms and fines. 3 companies were fined up to $180,000 each. The prosecutor dropped the charges against Volvo. See also: National Geographic Seconds from Disaster Episodes. References. External links. Official website, Traffic Tunnel de Pierce Mont Blanc. Popular Mechanics, April 1952, pages 92–96. Detailed drawings of planned tunnel construction, ATMB, official company website, ATMB, official company website, ATMB, official company website, Mont Blanc Tunnel at Structure, Chamonix Mont Blanc map, BBC story on fire trial.